All right. So, hi, I'm Natalie Frazier, and these are my fellow fellows. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Lauren. Thanks for being here.
And we're Emory University Community Building and Social Change Fellows. Through our instruction from Dr. Michael Rich and Professor Kara Tuckerman, we learned about methodology, skills, and tools for community building that we're able to put into practice this summer. We would like to thank both of you for your wonderful insight and dedication to this program. Through our 10-week program, we are partnering with the Porter Sanford III Performing Arts and Community Center to help them with their goals of increasing diversity and inclusion at the center, so that the makeup of the center reflects the makeup of DeKalb County as a whole. Our partners at the center are Iracema Gonzalez and David Manuel. We want to thank Iracema Gonzalez. Ira was our point person this summer. Thank you so much for being so passionate about these two initiatives. And we would also like to thank David Manuel, our other partner, for always helping to push these two initiatives. This project would not be the same without our two wonderful partners. Thank you also to the directors and staff, the DeKalb Recreation Parks and Cultural Affairs, to all of our community partners who we have spoken with and work with this summer. We appreciate all the help and support. We're also joined today by Kate Grace, who is our Community Building and Social Change Program Director. Thank you, Kate, for being here and for doing it all. We appreciate how much time you spent with us, and you're a great asset to this team. And thank you to Emory University for creating and having this program. So as previously mentioned, for this project, we're partnering with the Porter Sanford Performing Arts and Community Center under the DeKalb Recreation Parks and Cultural Affairs Department. Our team is specifically focusing on supporting the diversity and inclusion initiatives at the Porter Sanford III Performing Arts and Community Center. As a whole, the department oversees 6,500 acres of land in DeKalb County. This land includes 110 parks, 82 pavilions, 9 recreational facilities, and the Porter Sanford Arts Center. The Porter Sanford III Performing Arts and Community Center is located in South DeKalb and opened 2009. To date, it has hosted over 8,000 theatrical productions, concert, classes, and private events. The center has a 500-seat main theater, a 100-seat secondary theater, and a 200-seat reception lobby. The Porter Sanford III Performing Arts and Community Center is a gem located in South DeKalb. Their events are regularly sold out and draw local residents to many of the events. What the center sees they are not doing well is that the diversity in their programming could be improved to help serve a wide range of DeKalb residents who both enjoy learning about and attending different events that represent the community as a whole. Thus, this summer, we have built upon an existing marketing plan to craft an outreach plan that addresses the goal of diversity and inclusion. Specifically, the purpose of this project is to help the Porter Sanford Performing Arts Center develop a structured and strategic plan for implementing diversification efforts at the center itself. We will hopefully be increasing diversity and inclusion through the research we have done, identify districts' diversity, create a structure and method for planning to increase diversity efforts for future use. To accomplish this goal of increasing diversity at the center and being more inclusive of all populations, we developed a strategy. In the first phase of this strategy, we used research tools, methodologies, census data, identified best practices, and used tools provided to us through our CBSE course to help us figure out the best way to move forward. From collecting data, we then moved into phase 2, the implementation part of the project. In this stage, we were able to interview some great community leaders and learn about their own strategies for making their environments a more diverse and inclusive space. We also connected with organizations and residents to help spread the word about our project and connect with residents overall. In this implementation phase is where we also created and distributed a community assessment survey and opened up our community art contest. In this phase, we were able to put our knowledge into practice and make decisions based on the research that we had done in phase 1. Phase 2 is where most of our time was spent this summer. Next is phase 3, where we analyzed the results of our community assessment and the art contest we created. Based on these results, we then made recommendations, which brings us to phase 4. Phase 4 will be completed by the end of this presentation, giving recommendations and talking about the sustainability of this project. Each of these phases has occurred in a time of a global pandemic. COVID-19 has taught us lessons on flexibility and adaptability. While it has presented us challenges such as not being able to be physically together, not being able to connect with residents physically in a residential space, it has allowed us to virtually connect with one another in residence in a way we never could have seen possible and produce such great results.
So to begin our project, we looked at phase 1. To prepare for our project, we began by understanding local conditions on an extremely basic level, such as the geography of DeKalb County, age distribution, and population size. All this information proved important not only in our understanding of those we hope to reach, but in analyzing the effectiveness and reach of our survey. We also researched socioeconomic statuses of geographic areas to better understand potential barriers across DeKalb. This understanding helped to inform our recognition of barriers, as well as the development of our survey and how we chose to distribute the survey. Although we recognize that there are many facets of identity that contribute to diversity, we understand that race and ethnicity are often key markers for diversity in our society, and we therefore found it important to understand these makeups in DeKalb County. As shown by the graph on the left, DeKalb County is over 50% African American, and as shown on the right, much of the African American population is located in South DeKalb around the Porter Sanford Center. The center has long served those residents in close proximity. However, our goal was to broaden the reach of the center and help better serve all of its residents because it is a facility of the county as a whole, and therefore all residents deserve to use its resources and access what their tax money is funding. To support and inform the work of our project, we employed 6 main strategies. We began by designing a community survey, which we'll discuss later in this presentation. We also built relationships with community organizations, local leaders, and community members by conducting interviews and meetings. Using research of model programs, we were able to develop best practices, which we will also talk about in more detail later in this presentation. The art contest and gallery, which opened yesterday, as David mentioned before, and was very successful, we're happy to say, was a major component of our project, and that helped tie together many of our best practices. And lastly, we have worked to establish systems of sustainability, a strategy that feels increasingly relevant as we near the end of our fellowship. So now to dive a little bit more deeply into our best practices. In development of our best practices, we identified 4 key ideals. The first of which is cross-sector collaboration. Cross-sector collaboration is partnership building across the nonprofit, public, and private sectors, which helps to diversify input into the project and increase support. The second idea that we identified as extremely important was requiring resident support and inclusion by conducting interviews, surveys, and developing our art contest to establish sustainable lines of communication between the center and residents. The third idea that we identified was broad accessibility. This means eliminating barriers such as those due to language, physical location, or economic resources through training, community outreach, and targeted resources. One example of this is our virtual exhibit. Although COVID presented some challenges in the implementation of our plan, it pushed us to create a virtual exhibit. And this strategy allowed people to participate without needing to access the center, which really helped eliminate barriers of possible cost, transportation, or lack of time to travel to the center. And our last best practice that we identified is creative placemaking. This raises the question, what is creative placemaking? And we see creative placemaking as an essential part of the future of community building in general. Creative placemaking is a strategy that highlights unique community characteristics, aims to increase vibrancy, improve economic conditions, and build capacity among residents to take ownership of their communities. It is a process that often results in changes to physical space, but it's also an opportunity to build relationships between diverse populations and create positive change in a community. To better understand creative placemaking, we consulted many sources on the power of art as a community building tool. LISC and NACO were 2 key resources in our understanding of creative placemaking. LISC addressed the strategy as an economic development method, arguing that the arts brings new people into an area, makes it more desirable for residents, and fuels the creative economy. This viewpoint was important because it not only highlights a benefit of promoting the arts, but it also assigns monetary value to a sector that's often regarded as superfluous. NACO's Our Town grant program highlighted creative placemaking projects across the country. These projects greatly inspired and helped shape the design of our own project, and they also informed our best practices so we could better understand how to implement our plan.
I also want to add that you see one of the pieces, well, you saw an art submission on the last slide, as well as this slide. We have art submissions scattered throughout the entire presentation. This is one of them, so keep an eye out for them.
So next, we have phase 2, implementation. For our implementation, we created and distributed a community assessment with the purpose and goal of finding a resident's perception of the center. We wanted to gauge how many DeKalb County residents are aware of the Porter Sanford Performing Arts and Community Center, and to see how many DeKalb County residents are aware of the service it provides, and to diversify the center by reaching the county's populations that are underrepresented. The county community assessment survey that we created and distributed was distributed in both Spanish and English. Both of the organizations that we talked to mentioned having survey in Spanish would be essential, since we will be able to utilize the resources of many organizations where Spanish is a language that is frequently spoken among residents served. We are able to target and build relationships with organizations that directly serve the DeKalb County area and spread the word through them and through the DeKalb Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs Department. We would also like to recognize that we understand not every population in DeKalb County has access to internet or has the time to take a survey with everything going on. However, we felt this community survey was necessary as a starting point to diversify the center. The community assessment survey not only asked residents how often they've attended the center and what programs they'd like to see, but it also asked demographic questions in the later half. The reason we were asking about demographic questions is we were trying to understand the different buckets that make up DeKalb County. We created this diagram of the main groups we believe make up diversity. In order to make the center as diverse and inclusive as possible, these buckets are important to our project and to the future of the center. We have found that diversity means different things to many different people, and we want to make sure that we are actively trying to reach out to these different buckets that make up DeKalb so that they will know the center is a place for anyone. We also believe that understanding the demographic makeup will help shape future programming, try to understand people that make up DeKalb, and make sure programs and services offered are keeping all residents in mind. The purpose of the survey comes from the understanding of many other case studies in which surveys are used as an instrument to understand communities. The survey's purpose is to gather data which is essential to helping us understand who the center currently serves and what communities it can better serve. We want to know what programs residents would like to see at the Porter Sanford III Performing Arts and Community Center, get a better understanding of residents, see what barriers might be preventing people from attending the center, and to get feedback so that we can help make improvements and be more inclusive. The survey allows us to directly connect with residents and hear their voices.
In the second part of our project, with the idea of creative placemaking in mind in the COVID-19 conditions, we decided to launch a community art contest in DeKalb County. We opened the contest to all DeKalb County residents, provided a gift card prize for contest winners, and then put the submissions into a virtual exhibit. You can see some of the submissions on the screen, and as I mentioned before, the submissions are scattered throughout the presentation. Keep an eye out for them, but also don't feel confused if the picture doesn't make sense with the words. So the contest itself had a few components that we thought were really important to making the contest and exhibit as diverse and inclusive of an art space as possible. First, we made the contest open to people of all ages in DeKalb County, with different categories ranging from ages 5 until infinity, however old you are. Next, we made the submissions themselves open to all forms of creative expression, truly making this a multimedia project that any person could submit to. We also welcomed work from artists who were not well established or who hadn't been platformed before, ensuring that the Porter Sanford Center was making space for everyone. The actual contest prompt asked residents, what does diversity mean to you? Why is diversity important to you? And how are you part of your community's diversity? By asking residents to respond directly to a pretty broad subject prompt, the meaning of diversity, residents could interpret the prompt in whatever way they felt most passionate. Finally, to contextualize and celebrate each artist and their work, we asked residents to submit their stories. This is the stories part of diversity stories. This part was really crucial to our project goals because we wanted the exhibit to have a variety of media, including language, that would give the artists an opportunity to demonstrate themselves and their artwork in connection to diversity, as well as clearly create a community space between artists and exhibit viewers that was based on understanding, appreciation, and empathy. One of the main purposes of this part of the project was to create a meaningful platform that residents could use to express themselves in these tense times of pandemic conditions and social unrest. By providing art as a way to deal with and talk about these issues, this project became a place for meaningful community building and community-led action, both of which are always important, but even more important in a time of social isolation. To empower residents through discussing these issues, we ultimately understood that this part of the project was a way to enact justice-seeking and healing practices by giving an equitable platform to the voices of individual community members whose voices are not normally recognized. There is one slide that was earlier in the presentation, somehow it got out of order, but it talked about social media and the ways that we were able to connect to people in this virtual platform. I'm going to quickly go back to that slide so that everyone can see it. Here it is. So we were able to spread the word and utilize resources during this pandemic by making lasting connections and partnerships with people who could help future projects. And we were, through these future connections, present and future connections, we hope that this would draw bigger crowds to the center, help the center become more diverse, and have different programs and people that the center could work with. And we understood that this collaboration could not be possible without the collaboration of many different groups, organizations, and individuals. And we could not have made those connections without using social media, without using emails, without reaching out to so many different organizations and really utilizing the networks that DeKalb County community has. So we use social media again, and we also connected using local residents and word of mouth. So these were really important in these COVID-19 conditions because, again, we were not able to be in the physical spaces, but through virtual and online platforms, it was as though we were able to. Okay, now I'm going back to, there we go.
All right, back on track. So now I'll talk about our third phase. Phase 3 is the results of all of our projects and implementations, and we'll start by looking at the survey data. So just to give a brief overview of our survey, it was live and collecting data for about 3 weeks, and we got a total of 177 valid responses. We did find that our respondents were generally older than the average age range in DeKalb, and we had about 3/4 of respondents identify as female, a skew from DeKalb's average of close to 50%. Where we more closely mirrored DeKalb as a whole is along ethnic and geographic lines. One of the biggest disappointments in our data is that we did not receive enough responses in any categories other than the 3 main ones shown here to accurately use them for statistical analysis, which is why all racial and ethnic groups other than Black, Hispanic, and white had to be grouped as other. That being said, of the categories we could analyze, we are fairly close to DeKalb as a whole, and that's something that is shown on the graph. Because it is our goal to increase the diversity of the center, it was important for us to understand what factors prevent community members from attending it. As you can see on the chart, a lack of familiarity with the center was the most common barrier. The other category that was very popular was the other category. In this category, we allowed people to write in responses to better explain what barriers they faced in attending the center. The 2 most popular barriers cited were a lack of information about events happening at the center and requests for programming changes. We also found it important to look more closely at the difference in responses across ethnic and racial groups. One extremely apparent difference was the difference in knowledge about the center between non-Black residents and Black residents. As you can see, about 66% of non-Black residents had not heard of the center, while only 6.25% of Black respondents hadn't heard of the center. It's also important to know that of Black respondents who had heard of the center, their most common source was friends and family. Because social ties in our society tend to be along similar racial, socioeconomic, geographic, and other common traits, if residents' main source of information about the center is from friends and family, the diversity of the center is greatly hindered. Although many people did not identify barriers, many Hispanic respondents did. Second to having not heard of the center, the most popular barrier that Hispanic respondents cited was a lack of interest in programming. Lastly, one extremely telling data point for us was that none of the individuals who identified as Hispanic had attended the Porter Sanford Center in the last year. Although we recognize that there are limitations in our data based on our smaller pool of respondents, we believe that these figures are a useful starting point in guiding diversity and inclusion efforts as the Porter Sanford Center moves forward.
As we mentioned before, yesterday was the opening of our exhibit, and if you're interested, you can view a recording of the event on our website. It's not posted right now, but it will be posted later today. With over 100 registrations to the event, the virtual event was attended by almost 70 people, and this absence of 30 people, we saw was the fact that some people were confused about how to access the event via Zoom. So this led to less attendance, and this confusion was a valuable learning experience for us as we understand how to organize in a virtual space. Even though there weren't as many attendants as those who registered, we were still able to reach more people through our virtual event and our virtual exhibit than would have likely been able to with a physical event or physical exhibit. And with the exhibit, we see that the website was visited by over 150 people last night alone, which likely would not have been able to happen if we were in a physical space. The most important part of our organizing tactics for this project was really taking a step back. Me, Natalie, Lauren, as organizers, we wanted to give a space to residents and artists to hear what they had to say. So the event featured the artists themselves talking about their works and how the works connect to diversity using their own experiences. While audience members were able to hear directly from resident artists about what diversity meant to them, the artists were actually so excited and prepared to speak about their works. And we know that this event was such a powerful experience for us as event organizers, but it was even more rewarding to understand how powerful it was for the residents and the audience members who were listening. So through the art that was showcased at the event, we were really intentional about making the opening event a community building space. And for this reason, we did not announce contest winners, and we still have not announced contest winners. They will not be announced until later today. And we did this so that we did not make the event a place where value was put on one person's submission over another. And we thought that this would really emphasize how much effort and thought that residents put into their works in general, because we know how hard everybody worked. Ultimately, the event brought together people from across DeKalb County. It gave residents the opportunity to connect with each other, and it became a form of community-led change, as the art forms and the stories indicated what issues residents saw as most prevalent in the DeKalb County community. Now that we have been able to identify what residents see as some of the most important issues affecting DeKalb County, we can really take concrete steps towards addressing these issues. Throughout our project, we utilized our website, DeKalbDiversityStories.com, to accept submissions, share resources, and to platform our exhibit. And though COVID-19 had many challenges, as we've mentioned before, one of its benefits was that it pushed us to put the exhibit onto a virtual platform, allowing us to reach more audiences than we could have ever imagined with a physical exhibit. By building this website, the Porter Sanford III Center has a way to build on this program for the future and develop a deeper connection with the DeKalb County community.
Which brings us to phase 4 in our sustainability, our recommendations, and moving forward. Our general recommendations include grant funding. We've compiled a list of grants in our final report for the center to possibly apply to in order to have more funding for art programs and events, such as the ones that residents would like to see according to the survey. Another recommendation is having events or festivals that relate to different cultural or ethnic backgrounds. According to the data collected from the survey, around 21% of Hispanic respondents strongly disagreed that the center had events for them, and more than half Hispanics hadn't heard of the center. Thus, this would be a population we would recommend connecting with more and having events catered towards. Another recommendation that was found through the survey is that the center needs to improve its advertisements by actively advertising to diverse audiences. 66% of non-Black respondents hadn't heard of the center, and 6% of Black respondents hadn't heard of the center. Most had heard of the center from friends or family, and thus we would want to improve advertisements in this way. We also recommend a follow-up survey that enables people to have more in-person interactions and more questions because of the challenges we face this summer in regards to having questions that would accommodate everyone and not being able to be there physically with people. It would help break the barriers of technology if we were able to do it in person. Looking at sustainability, in order to make the initiative sustainable, we hope that the art contest continues each year, and we hope to make it an annual contest. Another idea is that the county considers making it a traveling exhibit by partnering with other local places to show the art off in many different areas of DeKalb County. In addition, we hope that this exhibit will not be virtual in the future. We are hopeful that one day the center will be able to have guests in person for live versions of this work to connect people in person at the center. The way we suggest having a sustainable annual contest is through the partnership and collaboration of connections made this summer. We realize the value and importance of these organizations and the people that were able to help shape our project and spread the word, and know that this will be important as the project grows. The contest, in our opinion, was a great success. We were able to connect with over 20 artists, residents, hear their voices, and have wonderful responses from all of them and their enthusiasm towards this project. However, there is always room for improvement. In the future, we suggest starting to distribute the flyers out much earlier. We recommend that the phase occurs when school is still in session so that we connect more with younger audiences. It would also be valuable in the future work at art camps to connect more with younger children that have an interest in sharing their art. We also believe that once this project hopefully becomes an annual contest and exhibit, that its audience will grow each year. We will also able to connect with a Mexican celebrity and artist, Leela Downs, during this project, and we hope that during the implementation phase, when this occurred, it happens much earlier next year. The video is on our social media platforms, and with more growth in the future, those endorsements and partnerships from other people will help the project be more successful. We also believe that those connections and partnerships will be better towards the start of the project. When the art contest was created, we didn't find any virtual art contests that we could model. During the implementation phase, we then found a virtual exhibit at the High Museum that was created this spring and the Decatur Arts Festival. In the future, we recommend learning from those two organizations and learn how they were able to be successful in their virtual efforts. The Porter Sanford III Performing Arts Center and Community Center is meant to serve all walks of life in DeKalb County, so it's important that the programs are created with the intention of serving everyone. The center wants everyone to feel comfortable attending its programs, and more diversity and inclusion will help dispel negative stereotypes, biases, and create an understanding and respect for other cultures, thus strengthening and celebrating DeKalb County's community identity. We also want to make sure we're actively connecting with our residents and partners that connect with residents to ensure that voices are heard. Through our survey, we were able to conduct and have responses directly from residents on the things that they would like to see, and what's important to them. Our art contest and exhibit we created allows for residents to have a voice through art. We heard many stories last night about personal experiences and how diversity directly impacts a resident's day-to-day life. We want to make sure that we are hearing those voices, listening to those voices, and actively trying to make changes that need to happen as a result. We are extremely proud of this project and what we were able to create, and how it's been a great form of connection during this uncertain time.
We'd like to thank you all for coming and listening to our project and its results. We also want to again thank the people who helped connect us at so many points during this project. We really couldn't have done it alone. Aixa, thank you for the translations, making flyers, advertising, and really helping connect us with the LAA. We couldn't have gotten anywhere close to as far without you. Representative Evans, Ted Terry, Kendra Price, thank you all for meeting with us, giving us much needed advice, and helping us better understand the community and how to move forward with our work. Mr. Billups, Don, and LaShonda, we thank all of you for your continued support. We really appreciate all of the help that the county and Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs has given us, and everyone else at the Porter Sanford Center, and everyone who's helped us in general. We really support it. Everyone at Emory, and especially our fellow CVSC fellows, thank you for supporting us and making this summer great. We really appreciate everybody. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window now. We can stop screen sharing and open up for more conversation if anyone has any comments they'd like to share. And first, we're going to pass it over to Ira so she can give us a little bit of an introduction.
Guys, thank you very much. First, I want to thank you guys, because without of you, we couldn't polish this diamond. Many times I have said it through the months that we got together. Personally, obviously, I'm a Mexican American, so for me, it was important to make sure that we are inclusive at Porter Sanford Center with all the nationalities, because we are the workforce. The international community is the workforce in DeKalb County too. So thank you very much for such a wonderful work. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Tree Atlanta, Rotary Club, Clarkson Community Center, Latinx, and many others partners that put so much effort to spread the word about these initiatives, the survey and the exhibit. And finally, thank you to my team, Lashanda, Dan, for being able to genuinely put effort and time in helping me to spread the word about this beautiful project from the fellows. And finally, to the leadership team that was always there to support this initiative since day one. So thank you very much to everybody. Kristen from NRPA, thank you very much for being also my rock and my inspiration. And so anyway, thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Ira. We really appreciate your words. So now we want to get into questions. I see in the chat that there's a lot of congratulations, and we really appreciate everybody's congratulations, all the positive reinforcement. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute your mic and ask us so that we can talk about it, and this can be a real community conversation.
Good morning to you all. It's Marvin Billups, and I just want to say how proud I am of the fact that you all were able to, in a very short time and a number of setbacks with the pandemic, pull this off. What I am concerned about and wonder if you all found that the lack of knowledge had to do with the type of shows that were being promoted, not by the department, but by promoters. So in your search, did you find promoters that would utilize Porter Sanford as their platform to bring their culture to the south of DeKalb and the celebration of their culture?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So I think one of the biggest ways to draw people in is definitely opening up the programming so that it does feel more accessible for people of lots of different cultures. And a lot of the feedback that we got was that making the center more easily rented for community members. So if there's like a discount or just a way that makes it a little bit more affordable so local artists can be supported, and then that can also be used as a really good tool for them to bring in members of their own communities. So I think, I'm not sure about like the economics of renting it, but if there is a way to make it more affordable for community members to rent out and then allowing them to publicize the event and also supporting them in publicizing it. So like having a website that more clearly lists all the events and sending that out more and having more of a social media presence that clearly lists the events that are upcoming, I think that'd be a really good tool to help diversify.
I was also interested in your piece. It didn't go all the way into it, but when I was in Baltimore, we actually identified a number of the different cultures that made up the city of Baltimore. And throughout the year, we actually celebrated that diversity by having cultural events, the Croatians, the Italian, the Germans, and on and on. We just went all over. And then the soulful picnic that we had for the predominant Black population there, all took place in the parks, but every one of them was undergirded by the city. I found that we talk about the diversity in DeKalb County, but we don't have that sense of purpose to celebrate that diversity. And I just think that there is an opportunity for the DeKalb County government to be that safety net, to talk in terms of undergirding the diversity, not just celebrated by talking about it and how many languages that we have within the county, but actually setting aside resources to do matching grants, to to work with the groups that you've made contact with to expand that effort.
Definitely, we're really glad that you said that as a representative of DeKalb County, so that we know that there's real support in the work that we're doing, and we think that like this, like you said, undergirding the actual diversity instead of just like talking about it, and making really concrete steps towards making sure that diversity is something that's not just acknowledged but also like built upon. So thank you, Mr. Billups.
And I'll piggyback with Mr. Billups. You know, now more than ever is that time to move the dial a little bit forward. And even after the opening of the exhibit yesterday, I received a call from the radio station V103 that want to do more community cultural events in terms of involving our department, because of the exhibition and also because of a number of other things that we've done in the past. Now is that time and that platform where everybody has their ear to the streets in terms of social consciousness and what's going on in our society. And art has always been that vehicle to cross over barriers, but to also be able to dialogue with the community. So this is a great opportunity to expand this.
I agree, David, and that's one of the things that I think the virtual platform allowed us to really reach people that maybe would not felt pretty comfortable hopping in their car coming to Port of Sanford, but at the very same time, they were able to participate. And by using the virtual platform, you're able to share that more broadly than a fixed place. And there was another about creating a sense of place, creating place makers. And I just think the DeKalb resources are so rich. We have a lot of resources within DeKalb County that we can dedicate certain spaces on any given time as we are talking about expanding the arts and celebrating the culture by dedicating those spaces for those events that we do. So I made a note of that. I know that there are a number of places throughout the country and using our network through NRPA, there are a number of cities and park systems that had, in fact, on those dates, on those events, create that sense of place by utilizing what's there. We don't have to go out. We just need to identify it, bring activities into those spaces, and put the festivals and the events on within the DeKalb County Park System. And so there are a number of nuggets that I have, and I look forward to seeing the entire survey so we can in turn look at maybe creating a strategy to grow this from this platform that you all and the foundation that you've established. So kudos to all of you.
Yeah, picking up on the last two comments, I'm sure some of you are familiar. The Atlanta Regional Commission has put together, they did this several years ago, a series of kind of ethnic and cultural profiles of different populations in the metro area, showing with some computer mapping the areas of concentrated settlement, and then a little bit of history about the ethnicity and the culture and some resources it might be interesting to kind of connect with ARC to see ways in which that information could be kind of cross-linked or shared and then built upon, so that it's not just a static resource that's a PDF file that you download with a couple of pages of information about people from Cuba, or wherever, but it actually becomes a mechanism for raising broader awareness throughout the region of the great variety of cultures we have within the Atlanta region, and particularly DeKalb County being a real epicenter of that diversity. It seems that it wouldn't take a great deal of effort to compile that information, and certainly when the new census comes out, that can be easily updated. But there's been, that's in my view, a very underutilized resource that could be harvested to really help enhance your promotion and promotion of diversity.
I'm not sure who that speaker was, but they were a little, but I did pick up the fact that ARC, the Atlanta Regional Commission, is also trying to create a greater awareness of the diversity within the metro Atlanta area. And I did make a little note of that, David, that maybe something that in the committee and the fellows can follow up on to see exactly what they may be doing. And maybe there are some ways to partner or find some resources to help grow this program to truly be reflective of the diversity in the metro Atlanta area.
Dr. Rich, do you want to sort of introduce yourself so Mr. Billups knows who you are?
Michael Rich, I'm a professor of political science here at Emory, and I taught the opening course in the Community Building Fellows program. I had a little bit of difficulty getting on the call at the very beginning, but I caught the presentation. And I'm right now kind of Googling to try to find the link on the ARC site, and I'll post it in the chat. So, and if I can't find it, I'll follow up later today and get that to the fellows who can get that out to everyone.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you for the suggestion, Dr. Rich. We will be sure to look at it and follow up with you and put it in our report. Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, that means because we're going to move this project forward, that means that the fellows are going to need to stay with us for a little while longer. So, forget your studies at Emory University. We need you. So
good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max. How are you?
Good morning, Max.
Hi. I'm glad I saw Ms. Gonzalez is actually involved in your group, and I wanted to ask her if the Mexican activities that she's planning on having or shows.
Hi, Max. How are you? Thank you for connecting. We are working and programming to make sure that we will serve all the communities. I'm working out that with my manager, David Manuel. And this was the first event that we have virtually. So I look forward to have more projects that will serve the community. If you go to the site where is the exhibit site, you will see, for instance, Lila Downs, which is a very well-known artist that has won Grammys and so forth. And she actually endorsed this project because she's Mexican-American, and she saw the needs of embracing the community in more effective ways. So thank you for your question. David, do you have any comment?
Well, Max, you know, just like Mr. Billups said, the majority of the events and programs that come to the doors of Port of Sanford are from outside producers. And so we're sort of at the mercy of whatever program or project they bring to our stage. But now we're sort of diving in, also sponsoring and creating our own programs.
That's great.
As a former director at the Woodruff Arts Center for 20 years, I worked with the Latin American Association in terms of creating a Latin American Film Festival, because film was a media that a lot of people really enjoyed, as well as a lot of dance events. We also were able to bring the festival, the Day of the Dead Festival, and we increased that number by over 3,000 participants. And so we want to do some of those same things in DeKalb County, especially in South DeKalb. And so we're looking forward to how we program more events, especially when we get back to whatever this new normal will be, in terms of how we practice safety, social distancing, but at the same time still continue to provide, you know, outstanding offerings that represent all the cultures of DeKalb County. So we're looking forward to what that new normal and those new programs will look like.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm also Mexican, so I was pretty concerned about the activities and the shows and events, whatever. And DeKalb County has a lot of Mexican community in there. I live in Fulton, but I go everywhere where the state has activities, and I participate, and I love having conversations with people about Mexico and all this. Of course, I'm pretty Mexican, and I'm glad you guys are doing it. Keep on doing the great work, and thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez, and thank you as well.
Thank you, Max.
Okay.
Thank you, Max. Thank you very much. That's part of the personality and the spices of being diverse, right? I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really quickly, or not quickly, doesn't matter. We have another question from Aixa. She put it in the chat. She said, how do you think the center can do a better job at reaching out to the Latino community? In addition to some of the things that Ira and David were just talking about, something that we really identified and mentioned in our presentation was like outreach and being creative about outreach. So we talked about advertising, and that can happen in a lot of different ways. So our project specifically used social media and the internet as a way to outreach communities. We utilized Irasima's contacts, and that's really something that the center can continue to use in the future. But then also having people on the ground in Northern DeKalb, where you have a large concentration of Latino Americans or non-Americans or whatever, you understand, many Latino communities. So we really need to have a combination of outreach tactics. It can't just be one thing. And we've really seen that through this project. We could only use internet, but we imagine that if we were able to have more hands-on and in-person connections, we would have been able to expand on what we did even more. Lauren or Natalie, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, when we talked to Aixa, she always told us about the murals along Beaufort Highway and the flourishing culture around there. And so in the future, it'd be great to do what you're saying, be on the ground, talking to residents, going to residential spaces, where meeting people where they are. So.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
And I will follow up and kind of close that out with, even before this project started, you know, I sat down with Mr. Billups and Chuck, and we started talking about how we engage more with the different cities that have been made up in DeKalb County. As you know, there's several cities that have been created in DeKalb County. We wanted to make sure that we were still connected. And so even before the whole quarantine is shut down, I was going out to Dunwoody and to Chamblee and to Tucker, having conversations about events and programming. So, you know, with Irasima on board and with the marketing team that we have with Don and LaShonda getting the word out and getting the visual out, we've kind of set the groundwork or the foundation to really move this forward. Having this wonderful virtual art exhibit is the first tier in terms of how we communicate and how we provide program. But now we have set that tone in terms of communicating, sitting at the table with all of DeKalb County, talking about the best of what we can offer as a collective group. So I'm excited about how we move this forward.
And I also have another comment. I found it was fascinating to see that the top reason that people don't know about is lack of information. You will think that the information is readily available or easy to find for people to find out about these art offerings. But we did in Brookhaven. I'm part of the arts committee in Brookhaven, and we just did a arts and culture master plan that's just being finished right now. And the top reason also given for was people cannot find information about the arts and culture, and you're seeing that in this report too. And I'm just, it sounds like something so easy to do. Oh, the information is out there, it's on the internet. But I was struck that in both studies, the lack of information about the art offerings at the different centers are a top reason why people don't attend. So, and that's very easy to fix. A lack of information is something that should be. But I was surprised how in both projects that was a top reason for people not knowing about what's being offered.
Right, and it's part of the infrastructure, what we have to do to move forward. So social media, Facebook, Instagram, but also a designated website that highlights the event. These are the things that we're kind of looking toward, because when you look at county government is really going to showcase the real needs. You need sanitation, you need roads and drainage. These are the things that, the taxpayers need. The art has always been considered an extra or a bonus or an activity. And so we have to make sure that we have a separate way of really promoting the offerings, partnering with radio stations, having a relationship with print media, also having a designated site for arts and entertainment. It's something that we're really looking into. But when it comes to the basic necessities of what the community need, those lists are a little bit higher, because if you go 2 weeks without somebody picking up your trash, you're going to be sending emails, as opposed to going to an outdoor park or concert. So, we have to look at where we are and how we communicate that message across. And I think, this open dialogue will lead to a lot of solutions in terms of how we can promote the arts without taking anything away from the other services that we offer as a county.
One other question that was raised in the chat by Betty was, how can community members make suggestions to the Porter Sanford Center about diversity and inclusion programming? And I know with our survey, we were really happy to get feedback from residents, and we definitely want another survey to go out. But David or Ira, is there a way that there could be a suggestion box or a way to open a line of communication for community members throughout the year so that they can give input about programming?
Well, definitely. So about 4 months ago or 5 months ago, we actually installed a suggestion box in our lobby. Of course, we haven't been back in the building in 4 months, so it's just an empty box. But also what we want to do is, moving forward, we want to make sure that we address any content, any questions after an event, and really get back to them. I'll be working closely with my marketing team as well as Iracema in terms of how we communicate and respond after a show or after event, because we use that as a tool to improve ourselves. It's one thing to have a center that has been booked straight solid for the last 5 to 7 years, but it's a bigger thing when you can approach the community in terms of what they want to see and the changes they want to see at the center. So we're looking forward to improving that dialogue. We're a very small team, but we can still make a huge impact on what we do.
So in addition to what David is saying, so my area is basically to make sure to take care of those constituencies or those audience or those community members. So I'm always available via email, and I'm not only speak Spanish, I also speak French, if that helps, because there is a lot of population within the Clarkston community, for instance, that is part of DeKalb County that speak French. And I have other colleagues and other partners that could support me in answering the proper questions to those that speak languages like Asian language, like Japanese, Chinese, which is Mandarin, and many other languages within the Asian community. So the beauty of it is part of our partners are CPAC. CPAC is the Asian, the biggest and powerful Asian organization in DeKalb County. And within their staff, they have a lot of translators that could serve those areas. And we have a lot of, I mean, if I show you the statistics of how many Asians and how they divide on, and how can we reach out to them and serve them better. So I am, once again, I'm available via email, and I will always be there to support the community because I'm also part of the community besides to work for the government. Thank you.
And Ira, it could be helpful if you put your email address in the chat to help people access it. And I think another idea that we have as fellows is maybe in addition to your email, like making a more open, like concrete line of communication. So maybe it's through the Porter Sanford website, like having a space for comments and suggestions, or even we have our website for another year. So people are viewing the gallery and are drawn to it from this event, we can have a space for them to continue to contact and give suggestions. But I think having a dedicated space for people to give feedback would definitely be really helpful and kind of continue the work of our survey and our community outreach.
Thank you, Kassie and Lauren and Natalie. I actually put my email address on the chat. Thank you, everybody. If you want to reach out to me, then I will make sure to respond right away. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to ask or concerns as we move forward? Okay, if not, we can start to wrap things up. But thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy morning to come to our presentation, and for everyone who helped contribute, we really appreciate all of the help and couldn't have done it without so many different people. And we've done lots of shout outs, but like know everyone who helped, we really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Make sure to check out our website, www.DeKalbDiversityStories.com. The beautiful artwork is up, and we will be announcing the winners soon. So if you haven't seen it, it's a really great thing that the community's done. Have a great day, everyone.
I just removed everyone again. It feels so aggressive, but I assume they've stepped away. But they're gone, good for good or bad.
We want Natalie to come back, so she'll be here in a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did I remove Natalie also?
Way to kick him out. You're like a bouncer at a nightclub. Way to put him out.
Just with a little push of a button. There's Natalie.
Good job once again. Good job. And I think the comments and the dialogue led by Mr. Billups was definitely on point and kept it going. So and he's good at that. He researches everything, and so from the beginning he was already looking to see who everybody was, who are the players at the table. He's attention to detail, and so but he's a wealth of knowledge. In the county. I think he'll be celebrating a birthday pretty soon, and he's been in this business for quite some time and very experienced.
Oh yeah.